What's going on, fellas? I'm doing the thing that I did last time with these. So I'm going to record the MIDS Watch live. So I'm opening up the last of the programs here. And then, once it's finished, I'll leave it up for like a day or two. You guys can come check it out. And then it'll be a permanent reward for the Patreon guys. I'll post it for them till the end of the time. It'll eventually get posted as its own thing, fully edited with some nice funky jams and that on the Mids Watch episodes. So, hey, thanks guys for coming in. Check it out. I'm going to ignore you for the first part. Once I get the recording done, then I'll make a hard stop right there. And we can then sit there and talk about our feelings or whatever the hell, you know? This better be good. Cappy's ranting about fat people. Dude, go back to your rants about fat people then, because this... So there's a few topics to it. A few of them are in the description, a few aren't. Go watch Cappy's if you want to. I'm fine with that. The first part is what Stoicism isn't. And nobody's going to like this because everybody loves to talk about being Stoic and Stoics and the Spartans and all this shit. But I'm here to tell you that's all bullshit. Almost every guy is using it as a barrier to their own emotional states. So just not being aware of what emotions part is in your life. And I always tell you your emotions are bad and you should feel bad. And here's a great example of it. Next part is the connection between fear and leadership that a lot of guys mistake when they're running through like a married red pill map and sorting out the relationship after a long period of like betadom. How obligated desire happens. Because I know everybody loves to hear the whole like you can't negotiate desire. And you'll say the thing and everybody will clap. It's like, oh, that's very good. It's very good. And then you put them in a situation where they actually do an obligated desire and they just weren't able to make the connection between the statement and the strategy, the red pill's tool, and actually mapping it to their real life situation. So I think it's a great example for that. And the theme for it was, as a guy, own the frame you have, not the frame you want. And this is going to run right in the face of all that be more alpha bullshit. So it was funny. I was talking with Jack about this off camera and he goes, it's interesting seeing all the old like married red pill stuff because it's different. I'm like, how's it different? He kind of goes, none of it is ad copy. It's actually like guys talking about shit. So it's pretty interesting anyway. Oh, one thing too, I added to it. It's not part of the original notes, but it actually kind of came out to me and I'm like, I'm surprised I didn't notice this before. But it's the idea, and it's a very common thing that happens when a guy is in a relationship, that he becomes red pill. He starts working on his marriage, whatever, fixing his stuff. And then all of a sudden, he hates his wife. Dude, I would say 80% of the guys who came through the space had that issue. I don't get it. I'm red pilled. Life is going well. I don't feel like sleeping with my wife anymore and I don't like her. Is that normal? And I'm here to tell you it absolutely is. So if you're a single guy reading this, just be aware. It's a phase. It goes away. You'll be fine. Let's fix the camera here. And let's see what we got in chat. Yeah, nice. Veggie hippie making active. All right, so I'm going to get started now. And I'll see you guys in probably 20 minutes. Welcome everybody to the Mids Watch. We got another episode for you. You're going to love this one. This is two themes that came out of this one that are very important. First is to own the frame you have and not the frame you want. And the second theme, and this is one that's super important to anybody who's working on their male action plan or in a dead bedroom situation or just in a marriage that's been struggling and you want to make efforts to fix it. So for most married red pill guys, they say you can't fix the marriage. The marriage is a woman's job to fix, but you can fix the man. And so guys do that. They fix the man, they make themselves worth a damn, and then once you start providing value, it's amazing how people around you want to provide value to keep you in their life. But the common thread on these is a guy will start to think to himself, it's like, okay, my wife never used to want to smash and she treated me like a plow horse. And now that I've got my act together and she's in love with me and everything is back to the way it should be, and this is great, except for I don't like her anymore. And I'm here to tell you that's absolutely a common thing. And you're going to see a nice field report here from a guy who kind of did that, but didn't know what was happening. And this is earlier on. Now it's at the point that as soon as a guy starts saying this, you already mentioned, like, look, it's just a phase, you'll get over it. But you're going to see like 6 years ago how we really got into it. A nice piece from Jack Ten of Hearts. So let's get started. The first thing to note is, again, you guys are noticing a consistent theme here. A guy comes in with the worst problems ever, and he throws his life on the table. He says, here's my Batman origin story, and what do I do about it? Somebody gives him heartfelt examples from other guys in the past, how to swap some notes, how to fix your life. And then the guy says thanks, deletes his account. No idea if it worked for him or not, because chances are these kind of guys just kind of let life happen anyway. And this was like no different than any other fad diet they got on. So we're going to see, and I've been trying to find an archive of the thing, but it just doesn't exist. So we're going to try and find what his original message was based on the responses from it. And I kind of remember it myself, but it'll be a fun little exploration for you guys. So Jack starts off with commenting, instead of getting fitness tests and comfort tests, all these tests now to me become shitty comfort tests. And that's because, and Jack's like, and that's because you have zero captain or oak in your response. Stoic? Sure. But that's not what your wife wants. She doesn't want what she says she wants either. But she doesn't just want an unresponsive and evasive husband who keeps walking out of the room. You somehow have the insight, unlike many men, to realize criticism from their anxious wives comes from a place of fear, yet you act ignorant of that fear. You absolutely should not placate that fear and bend over backwards and do whatever they want, but your responses will just ensure increasingly more shitty comfort tests. Some quick definitions here. So if you don't know what the captain means, the captain refers to a captain first officer model. It was popularized by, I want to say, Athol Kay, but don't quote me on that one. And the idea was, as the captain of a ship, the ship being the relationship, you're ultimately responsible for everything that happens underneath. Now, the captain's not the one swabbing the deck and doing all the work, so he has to delegate it out accordingly. The wife, on the other hand, or the girlfriend, or the significant other in this case, is the trusted first officer. And the idea there is she gets a say, she gets, input, she's not incompetent, she's perfectly competent, but you get to veto things if you don't think it's going to work out for everybody. It's an idea of like extreme ownership. But everybody loves extreme ownership when Rocco Wilnick says it, but he said it with a bunch of married dudes on the internet, and now it's misogynist, so here we are. And the oak, when I say Stoic isn't topic of this thing, what I mean here is that the oak is what you're trying to be, but guys keep mistaking it for stoicism because every douche on the internet keeps talking about stoicism. The oak is like the oak tree. There's an old post, I have to go dredge it up there, where it's, you're like an oak tree, and the wind hits you, and you move a bit in the wings, you buffer around a little bit, maybe a fire happens, you lose some leaves, but the oak is still there. As opposed to being stoic, where you're trying to be like a rock. Everything just bounces off you, nothing affects you. The problem is, the oak acknowledges the world around it, but it doesn't move. It's steadfast, and that's kind of where you want to be, as opposed to being stoic, which is just nothing ever affects you. You're like a hunk of wood. Nobody cares. And that's not really useful because this is a relationship after all. And girls kind of feed off of actions and reactions and reading people, that sort of thing. So if you're just not reacting at all, you're essentially checked out of the relationship. And you're sending a very strong signal that it's over. And in this case, his wife tends to respond to him with really crappy comfort tests because she's basically terrified that this relationship is coming to an end, even though she used to take it for granted. So that'll help you here if you understand those things there. Oh, and then just the difference between a shitty comfort test and a normal comfort test is whether a girl has decent relationship strategies of her own. Like a comfort test is where she's not sure of her place in your life, and so she throws out some test to gauge commitment. A shitty comfort test is a really shitty way of doing it. That's all that is. Anyways, he quotes the app again, so I decided to poke the hamster with a hot iron. The hamster in this case makes a reference to how girls' emotions are like a hamster running on a spinning wheel, spending a lot of effort getting nothing done. And then Jack's like, you know what, that's ridiculous. Like you decided? Really? Really? You decided to poke the hamster with a hot iron? Like, no. You got sick of your anxious wife constantly giving you shit, and you called her out on it, then claimed the moral high ground and shut down the conversation when she used personal insults. And you seem to be enjoying this tactic a lot. And I'm pretty sure this is based on a comment on your previous post. And I know why. And he's going to reference that one too. He's like, the guy said, like, I doubt that it's really about her and more about your own choice in making a lifelong commitment to such a creature. Go ahead and check out Completely. And the guy's like, oh, fuck. That's what I have to say about all that. Good point. Again, it's like literally that bad single 20-year-old guy hearing about a guy with a marriage of 15 years. And you're like, yeah, my wife did this one thing. What do I do about it? And he's like, just next the bitch. And you're like, dude, It's been 15 years. We got 2 kids, a mortgage, and a pension. Like, surely there's a stack in between here and there, but, you know, the 20-year-old kid doesn't give a shit. They're naive as hell, but they're like, yeah, why wouldn't you just ditch everything? I have no attachments. You're like, all right, slow down, kid. Let's get in there. And continuing on here, though, Jack's like, it's pretty clear you don't think your wife is worth the effort it takes for you to lead in your marriage. But leadership requires more than stoicism and not giving a fuck. It requires more than just shutting down. Shitty comfort tests and figuring out she'll get the message all on her own. She needs to drop the shit if she wants comfort. But come on, man. That's just naive. You're shoving all of her anxiety in her face, calling that frame, and assuming somehow that air of faux superiority will turn her into a sweet, surrendered wife. And then he kind of references to the op at one point. He's like, yeah, I can read her behavior like a book. He's like, I'm sure you can. Because I'm sure you used to be, like a lot of guys here, a little blue pill, beta bitch who was raised in his formative years to develop some unhealthy codependent traits. That codependency meant you put away too much self-worth into making other people feel good, but it also meant you knew how to make other people feel good. You knew how to express sincerity, how to placate anxiety, reduce fear, and inspire joy. And the ability to do this stuff is not some weak beta male shit either. It's only when you use these things at the expense of your own joy, or when you do it expecting it to be sexually attractive, that when it becomes weak beta shit. Again, I keep telling guys on here when they talk about alpha and beta, and they're like, yeah, alpha is good, beta is bad. This is strong, this is weak. And I'm like, you're not getting it. Alpha is attraction. Alpha makes a girl want to have sex with you. Beta is comfort. Beta is what makes the girl want to make you breakfast the next morning. And so when you start thinking about these as tools as opposed to like value systems, this all starts to make sense. In this case, the guy had way too many comfort tools. He's finally decided that, you know, the attraction ones are ones he's let aside for too long. He's working on them. Now he's getting them, but the wife has anxiety because she doesn't know where she stands in this new life. A guy's completely changed. And, you know, if you're a wife that all of a sudden out of nowhere started going to the gym 6 days a week and going out with your friends to the bar, that usually means she's checked off. She's checked out and she's going to find somebody else. So from a girl's standpoint, when a guy starts doing these things, she just assumes he is too, even though he just wants to make his marriage and life a little bit better. But that's the thing. He knows all this, but he's ignoring it because he's kind of reveling in that I get to teach her a lesson. Because he doesn't like her anymore. And that was what I said before, the common issue. You take up red pill, you fix your stuff, and then you realize you just don't like your wife anymore. In this case, it's literally him trying to get revenge for however many years of a lackluster marriage he's had. And then I don't think it's fair. It's not frame. I'll put it that way. Like, if your wife really was that bad and you can't move past it, just leave. But the sitting there getting the revenge for it, it's not the best use of your time. And all it is just dragging things along. Jack continues here. It's like, why do you think your wife married you? Well, because you were an empathic person, and that's what someone with an anxiety disorder needs. When your wife is giving you a shitty comfort test saying things like, I don't trust you or anymore, and you can say, well, that's not my problem. Or you can say, like, look, it's hard for anybody to trust other people. I want you to trust me, and I think things will turn out well for us if you do. I'm going to do things that make you anxious, and you're going to want me to stop doing them so you can stop being anxious. You're just going to have to trust me more than your anxiety. Brilliant line, by the way. And he points out, like, out of those two options, option 2 utilizes a bunch of fogging and is the Oak statement. But like I said, you're an empathic guy, right? You already knew it was an option to say stuff like that in your arguments, but for some reason, you think red pill means you get to stop saying that because, let's be honest, the conversation wouldn't end with that. Her hamster would still run, and you still have to repeat some version of it and do what they call broken record. I know it's hard, but you need to trust me instead of your anxiety. Look, I know it's hard, but you need to trust me instead of your anxiety. I know it's hard, but you need to trust me instead of your anxiety. Say it a few different times. When she gets defensive of said anxiety and decides to redirect it to your own personal failings or previous events where she did and it messed up. But if you don't do that, your answer is number 1, then it's not like she's going to condition herself to stop doing this anyway. Like, let me be clear. I don't think this was a main event. Yeah, we'll take a pause here. When he's talking about, like, these things are pretty dense. I hate how I have to explain, like, 30 minutes of explanation for a 10-minute post, but we're at where we're at. A main event is at the tail end of a good percentage of guys' male action plans. Becoming red-pilled, working on your relationship, or working on yourself within your relationship. What happens is A girl will build up a level of anxiety, a level of potential loss. It's dread. That's why it was called dread, because they tend to dread it. Then what happens at a certain point where a girl truly does not know how to manage being in the life of a guy that she sees is on the up, and no girl wants to get off the moving train. So this comes out as the mother of all comfort tests. Snot bubbles, crying, I don't know what I need to do to make you happy anymore. It's essentially like a huge blowout because it's a girl using direct language saying, I want you in my life and I don't know how to get there. And that's usually when the dynamic of the relationship switches from a female dominant one or equal to a male dominant one. And that's usually where a guy has, and then there's a thing in there called the coming to Jesus speech, but that's another topic for another day. Let's just hold to this thing here. An intense and confrontational argument, sure. But you're just going to have one the next day, and the next week, and the next month, and you'll maintain frame, and she'll get hysterical, and you use her hysteria as a reason to ignore her cries for comfort. And this will continue until she can't take it anymore and then asks for a divorce. Because I'm pretty sure you started repeating, that's not my problem, or this conversation is over, and it's not going to help anybody overcome this literal diagnosed mental disorder and become the sweet and fit and high self-esteemed wife you want. And that is what you want, right? It's always kind of funny. Guys keep thinking there, keep pouring more alpha on it, keep sprinkling a little alpha on it. And that's the case there. This guy did nothing but sprinkle alpha on his marriage to its detriment. Like at some point you need to add some beta, some comfort. The problem is most guys have absolutely no alpha in their relationship, and so you end up with these very lackluster marriages, which it's fine. Add some alpha to that, but you got to calibrate. You can't just go 100. You can't go from the plow horse to like the Chad destroyer of worlds and then expect your marriage not to blow up. Now, if that's what you want, that's great. But if that's what you want, you wouldn't need to be doing these weird torture examples that he uses, where he says he doesn't care about her anxiety turns into hysteria, and then he uses it as a cudgel to hit her with. Like I said, it's where is his frame there? And right now it's being like, I'm going to teach that bitch a lesson for being so mean to me all these years. You got better things to do with your time. He makes reference to the op then talking about how your wife is your mirror, which is true. And this is back to the point where I said a lot of guys will do their red pill map, and then they find that they just don't like their wife anymore. It turns out the reason that happens is because it's a mirror effect. Turns out your ego realizes, and this is one thing you realize when most guys go from a period of like destitution to a period of success, they're like, why didn't I do this earlier? And they look back at all those years prior and they see it as a giant failure. But because our egos don't let us think poorly of ourselves, it's not our failure, it's that bitch's failure. And they look at her and it's like, that's your fault. And that's where that hate comes from. A lot of girls praise that as misogyny, but it's like, no, man, it's like literally a guy processing his demons. I think Bill Burr had a great sketch on that. He's like, whatever happened to those girls that just realized it wasn't about them? And in this case, the mirror and not liking your wife, it's not about them. It's about you. And eventually guys get over it. But you just have to understand why it's there, right? So if you think your wife's shitty comfort test are somehow a reflection that you've been doing too much weak stuff and you need to act like more of a shithead, then I think you got the wrong end of the stick here. You're just wearing this my way or the highway attitude and not even giving her any guidance about what your way even is or why you only want her to take the highway if she can't trust you instead of her anxiety. And again, a guy knows all this. He's literally not hearing anything new. And he's phrasing things a little more eloquently, maybe, but none of this is sparking any gestalt moments here. And if you can admit that, then hopefully you're honest enough to admit yourself this. Your behavior is driven because you're sick of your wife's anxiety disorder, and she's become a fat and unattractive and mostly unredeeming quality person, and you think you can probably do better. So yet, what's stopping you from owning that? No kids? Both work, so divorce would mean just splitting up some assets and calling it a day, right? Well, what's stopping you? Well, you, Mr. used to be codependent and is still codependent enough to realize that asking her for a divorce would literally devastate her. She'd quite possibly have a panic attack on the spot, as you've reinforced her every fear that she's just an unlikable and unlovable person. The one person who sort of convinced her that case wasn't true was you, are throwing in the towel. And I'm sure you're perceiving an air of judgment in these last few sentences, so let me be clear. Your wife does not get a free pass because she has a diagnosed mental illness. If she wants to remain in the commitment, she does have a responsibility to hold up her end of the marital commitment, including being attractive, kind, treating her mental illness with whatever combination of therapy and medicine are required. And all I'm saying is you're demonstrating zero leadership about this. You're not demonstrating any guidance on what you consider attractive and kind, and what behaviors from her would get attractive and kind behaviors from you. And I'm saying you're not doing that because that would take work. Probably a lot of work. And it's a lot easier for you just to act like a shithead and figure she'll spontaneously kill her hamster and drop 40 pounds, or you'll drive her into enough hysterics that she'll ask for a divorce, and you, Mr. used to be codependent but clearly sort of still codependent, don't need to be the bad guy. And Op kind of carries on here with, I feel good, honestly. There's times when I just want to say, get the hell out of here, but I'm not going to show any more emotion than I have to. See, preface to anxiety, to keep the wife in check. Jack's like, let me make one more analogy here. The way you're acting, it's like you and your wife are tied together with ropes, sitting on wooden chairs on top of a puddle of gasoline, and you just lit that gasoline on fire. And you're now pretty much just saying, well, you can get us out, or we and our marriage will just burn up in this flame. Either way, I don't give a shit, so I'm just going to sit here and enjoy the show. And in all likelihood, she won't be able to save you both from the fire, and you could smugly say, well, we're burnt to a crisp, but she could have gotten out and she didn't. She won't see it that way, but it doesn't matter. So realize, if your wife really does have a diagnosed anxiety disorder from a medical professional, that she is probably incapable of smoothly getting you both out of that fire. She'll probably get really desperate, break her thumbs to escape the rope, and then chew through the rope to get you out, but that desperation will seem like you have the hamster working for you, except that it'll be 100% motivated by anxiety. You're sick of her prioritizing her fears over you, but your approach, if it succeeds, will ensure she behaves the way you want because she now fears you over her other fears. There's no virtuous red pill cycle of two people acting in another's best interest because that person adds value to the other person's life. That it's also in their own best interest to do so. No, it's just driving your wife to be anxious to the point where she just succumbs and does whatever you say because she's terrified you'll disapprove otherwise. Obligated desire or negotiated desire only leads to obligated compliance, and that's not what you want. That's the same argument that a lot of chicks make. It's like, well, if incels couldn't get laid, why don't they just get prostitutes? And you're just like, it's not about the sex. And in this case, it's not about the relationship. He wants the wife to be a good wife, but she is mentally incapable of getting there. And because he's treating this as like a revenge fantasy, he has no desire to lead her towards it. With the other part of it being, that takes work. And right now it's very easy for him just to be a smug asshole and turn his alpha up. It's not so easy to add some leadership to that, to guide her from it. And that's a lot of being like the captain in this model, or the oak, is that you're not just sitting here being as alpha as possible and then she'll do whatever you want her to do. You actually have to tell her how to provide value to your life. Now, I don't know how old this girl is. Maybe she's 30, maybe she's 40, maybe she's 23. I don't know. Here's the point. Most girls suck at relationship strategies. I think Rollo had an article on it where the modern girl just thinks, be naked, bring beer. That's girl game. And they don't realize there's more to it than that. So since there's nobody out there telling girls how to be women anymore, there's no guys out there telling men how to be men anymore, we got this here. This is how you do the stuff. This is how you sort your marriage out. This is the goals you might want it to consider. Again, what does Op want? If she's unredeemable, be the bad guy. Leave it at the altar. All right, we're done. We tried. Not going to happen. You're a lost cause. But own that. Own the frame you have and not the one you want. If he thinks that, he wants to lead this, then that's great. So lead it. Show her the things that it takes to be a good person. Reward good behavior. Don't reward bad behavior. We talk about these tools. I have it in the sidebar series on this video. You can check out the channel if you want. Broken record, fogging, amuse mastery, agree and amplify, negative inquiry. All these tools are leadership tools. If your wife's having an anxiety attack towards you, sometimes it's just a matter of fogging. Acknowledge the anxiety without validating it. Provide a life raft. Hey, trust me more than your anxiety. Things will all work out in the end. I've said it as much in my own during my map. It was, I'm going to be a selfish prick moving off once I leave the military. But you know what? It's going to be fun. And if you're on board, I'm all for having you. Sometimes that's all it takes. Of course, you can't really get there without that shit ton of work killing all the demons in your past. And part of that is this report where a guy no longer likes his wife because she reflects his previous failures at him. And this is where Op is at. So yeah, I love these reports, by the way, because this is when people talk about red pill being great, this, then that, People are very embarrassed and they do not like talking about the real shit like this. So the fact that we still have some snapshots of these guys having these real situations, like I guarantee out of the 50 guys you've seen brag about how red pill has saved their marriage, probably all 50 of them have a really embarrassing story like this where they've really screwed up because they're not congruent with their own goals. They don't understand the terminology. They don't understand the concepts, but they're getting there. And luckily enough, like some guys will have other men that help them through it, swapping notes. And that's where you're getting here. So we're going to finish this one off with the last piece where the guy makes an edit later on. He's like, look, I'm in no way an expert. I get it. I still have a lot to learn. And I'm sure people will point out how things could have gone differently. To which Jack very flippantly is like, yeah, no shit. Look, all you need to figure out is whether you still give a shit about your marriage or not. If you do, then all of those shitty comfort tests are easily passed when you frame it like this. I know you're scared, and you trust your fear more than me. But if you start trusting me, I think you're going to see better outcomes than you've gotten by trusting your fear. And if you're incapable of trusting me, then so be it. But I can't be in a marriage where my wife doesn't trust me over her fear, and thus expects me to never take any action that would cause that fear, no matter how irrational. That's frame right there. That one statement sets the tone for everything that follows, all the decisions. There's actually a term for this too. It's called a deep narrative. Because I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about mental models on the channel, basically a narrative structure that allows you to anchor your decisions. You know, what would Jesus do is a great example of that. A deep narrative is something that runs underneath all of your mental models. And this is the one here that he's saying, I'm willing to put in work. I'm willing to put up with your bullshit. I just need to know that you're going to trust me more than your anxiety. And if a girl's making that effort, that's what he's taken as investment, and then he can invest back. Again, it's just like, used to be pickup, talking about the 2/3 rule, right? Give her 2/3 of what she gives you. There's an example of it playing out in a fucking marriage. Like, welcome to Red Pill, man. There's no bravado here. There's no catchphrases. There's not sprinkling alpha on it. Well, here, this is like real shit that works. So enjoy it. And he carries on here. You're talking to the op about maintaining frame, and that it's your frame, dude. Over time, she'll find comfort in that frame because it's consistent. She'll learn to trust the new red-pilled you. But yeah, it's going to take time, and it's going to take work. You're going to have to prove your own competence over amount of time proportional to your, drunk captain period. If you guys don't know, that's another one about, there usually is like 3 or 4 different archetypes of guys in struggling relationships. And we call them the drunken captain models. The idea of the captain, the first officer, which we talked about before. So it'll be a while before she trusts your guidance for her own self-improvement. But if it doesn't work, well, the beauty of this is you did try. So you can end the marriage and feel like you were really being a constructive and positive person, and you're both just incapable of giving each other what's needed to be respectively happy. Just avoid knocking her up in the meantime, and you'll be able to end the marriage a lot easier than the divorce rate nightmares that you hear on the main Red Pill sub that they love to talk about. They always got to give little jabs to the single guys, man. But if the idea of putting in that level of time and effort is distasteful to you, totally understandable. We get it. And all I'm advocating is that you own it, which means that your frame should really be, I have no more confidence in your ability to fulfill the marriage I want, so it's over. So instead of your current frame, which is something like, I have no more confidence in your ability to fulfill the marriage I want, but I know asking for a divorce would devastate you, and I would feel really bad about that. Even though I don't feel bad about generally acting like a shithead and figure out you'll either step up or initiate the formal termination, and that's probably because I'm fueled with so much resentment towards you for causing me so much anguish over the years while I've tried to placate your every fear, only to end up with an even more anxious wife who's now a fat ass to boot. It's not that easy, but it is that simple. So some final thoughts on this one before we let it go. The part I love about this stuff is, I think Rollo has an article on this one about killing the puppy, or Please Break Up With Me, I think it's called, yeah. Where he talks about girls don't break relationships. Girls will just act shittier and shittier and shittier, or they'll cheat on you and all this stuff to make you do it because they don't want to be the bad guy. Reputation is sacrosanct in a woman's mind. So if they can somehow get you to break up with them, they're the good person, you're the bad person, and that's all that matters. And I've been telling you guys plenty of times that men are being raised as defective women. And it sounds cool, and it's a catchy phrase, and it makes for a good tweet, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. This guy was raised as a defective woman. And in this case, he doesn't want to be in the relationship, or he does. We never do find out which way he wants. Not that it really matters, because the answer is the same either way. Pick a frame and own it. So what he does instead is he tries to punish her. In his mind, he's not thinking, I'm going to be as shitty a person as possible, and then she'll leave me. That's not how people think about it. He has to delude himself into thinking, yeah, if I just act like a stoic, like I'm better than she is, and then I shit on her every time she gets mad at me, even though she's got anxiety. It's basically like, beating up the mentally handicapped kid and then running a victory lap. But yeah, gets revenge for all those times that she treated me like crap, makes me feel great. I don't have to look in the mirror anymore because it's not me. I'm great. It's her. She was the problem. And then he's so focused on how he feels, he's not focusing on what he wants for an outcome. For a lot of guys, that's common. They sit there and they go, and you tell them, like, what do you want? It's like, and they'll just say something simple, like, I want my wife to sleep with me more, or I want more blowjobs, or whatever. And you're just like, okay, you get that part sorted out. For all I know, his sex life might be good now, if he wants it. But once that's out of the way, you realize that was just an excuse, a buffer. And then you're going to get through more and more buffers. But then at the core of it, it's really that. He wants a girl that's invested in him, that acts like she gives a shit. And he doesn't have that right now. But he's not willing to accept that and own it, because he might be the bad guy in somebody else's story if he acts on it. And again, part of being a man is not being a woman. And in this case, you need to be okay being the bad guy in your story. And if you don't want to be the bad guy in it, and you think this thing is salvageable, then yeah, you got to lead towards that too. Again, be the captain. You may not be the good guy in that story either. She's having an anxiety attack, and you're like, you need to trust me, and don't worry about the anxiety. It's going to happen. It involved you eating a lot of shit. Nobody ever said it was going to be easy. Nobody ever said you were going to get rewarded. But if you want to succeed, you sometimes have to ignore how you feel about these things and just get going. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Stick around. We got a ton more coming, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers. All right. So that's the episode for you guys. I love this one. I did try my damnedest to search through and find the original post. Like, I know, I've seen enough of these. I kind of know what it was, even if I don't know the specifics of this one. Very, very common. Guy hears that alpha is awesome. He loads alpha into his relationship. He ditches all the comfortable beta stuff that was good. The codependent thing was a nice twist on this and the mental disorder. And then they forget, like, oh, geez, I totally forgot. Like, the things that originally made me attractive, even though if they didn't make me desirable, like, there's value for those too. And this is the calibration process. Back then, it was great, though. Guys, after 6 months, would be having these issues. And then near the end, like 2 years ago, people took like 2 years. So we've really, all the switched on guys who know what they're doing and they work hard, they're figuring it out. Now we're at like the regression to the mean thing. And so for the average guy, it's probably going to be 2 years since you have like these kind of epiphanies in your own life. So sucks anyway. Tiger Jen, I see your chat about telling me how to make content. Yeah, okay. Johnny, about Cappy ranting about fat people. Well, I hope this was better than ranting about fat people. Stoicism can be a mental crutch for those who don't assert themselves. Yeah, in this case, it's not stoicism at all. Most guys don't know what the fuck stoicism is. They think they do. And they just think stoicism means, like, I can take 5 punches without flinching. It's like, that's not stoicism. Stoicism is like the serenity prayer. You're going to react. You're going to be emotional, but you're not going to let your emotions lead. You're going to lead your emotions. Spartans were very unstoic when it came to massacring a town. They were very stoic, though, when it came to, bitching about the dishes not getting done. But yeah, it's like Eder Santos here says, it's not about feeling emotions, about not letting them be controlled by them. Which I agree, but that's the problem, is that the way it's being presented and the way people are implementing it, you can already see it's just an emotional buffer against actual getting their shit together. Then, greetings from Spain. What's up, yo, Yamiso, Admiral, Paul, Sevaho. Ja, ist ich noch mal next level. All right, thank you, man. I don't know what that means. My Deutschländer is very, very bad. All right, yeah, you guys are all doing the German thing together. I'm going to skip past all that till we get to English. Did Ryan make a video on how holding the moral high ground sometimes can fuck up one's life? I think I'm doing that now, dude. Call it a hunch. And then Admiral Paul, do it. It would help. Yeah, well, I'm doing it now. So here you go. I hate to say it, as much as I want to make a pithy video that has one point to it and like very catchy ad phrases, life doesn't work that way, man. With these videos, you're going to get, in this case, there's like 5 different concepts all intertwined together, and they're all dependent on every other one. And you're just going to have to use your own brain to parse through it and see what parts matter for you. It's probably bad. I could be at 100,000 subscribers if I put like the 5 reasons that stoicism's screwing you over. Number 3 will surprise you, but like, fuck, I'm not a good marketer. You get what you get. You're just going to have to settle for learning, paying the fuck attention. All right, now you guys, and see, here's the thing too. Like I love that Bruce Lee quote of like a finger pointing at the moon. Don't stare at the finger or you're going to miss all the heavenly glory. You guys are sitting here now arguing over lowercase s stoicism, uppercase stoicism, what stoicism really is. Like, dude, stoicism is not the fucking point. There was nothing stoic in that field report. The guy talked about it being stoic, but it wasn't stoic. We're not arguing about stoicism. If it was useful, somebody in here would have suggested it. Nobody suggests it. The point is, he can't be stoic. He's emotionally invested in this stuff. He's got a lot of built-up resentment, a lot of built-up anger. Stoicism isn't the issue. Accepting the frame of his life is the issue. Do you want to be here or do you not? Is she redeemable? Is she not? Do you want to put the effort into redeeming her if she is, or do you not? Those are very easy questions, but they're not, well, they're simple questions, but they're not easy. And that's why he can't answer them, because no matter what answer he gives, he's the bad guy. Either she's going to give him anxiety and grief and he's got to plow through that, or she's going to be fucking devastated, have panic attacks over the separation, and he's going to feel like the bad guy. And since he doesn't like either one of those, he would much rather punish her for being a reflection of his past failures and then hope that she dumps him so she's the bad guy and not him, of which a girl will never do. So he's basically just put them both in Dante's Inferno. And they're going to sit there hating each other for years. And then they're going to be the ones that get on there talking about how these red pill guys are well, I mean, he's not, because he knows what the fuck he's doing. But you'd be surprised how many guys in situations like this shit on guys like Rolo or me because we don't know what we're talking about. And their marriage is great. And it's like, dude, put me as a fly on the wall for half an hour in your marriage and I'll point out right there how you, like, even the simplest stuff would help you considerably. We are some hoes who need saving. I'm bored today. Well, I mean, if you want to, right? If women use a revolving door to get out, what's the gain for men not to simply go that way? I don't know, Maurice, man, are you not paying attention here? Op literally doesn't know what he wants. And some asshole on the internet, that's why he did that jab about the guys in the red pill just saying next that bitch. Like, yeah, it's a goal and you could do it, but what's the point? Like this guy, he'll end up just kicking the can down the road. He will, if he, let's say I'm done with this, I'm out. Just ditches her, cuts off clean. They're working together. There's no divorce rape. It's just a separation of assets. It's fine, right? Now, the next girl he gets with, first off, he's going to be attracted to the same type of girl because that's what he knows. He's going to find himself another anxious person. He's going to end up in the same situation. It's just a different girl 5 years later. And he's wasted all that time in his life when he could have just fixed this shit. And that's why I don't like, no offense to you, Maurice, but there's an 18-month window with every woman beyond which it makes net negative. There is no hard and fast rule to this shit. Some guys, literally, day one, they're like, you know what? I'm red pill. Fuck it. I'm out. They cut ties. They leave. They start again. Good for them. There's some guys that put in 2 years of effort into this stuff. There's some guys that put 6 months of effort into this stuff. There's guys that put a year into this stuff and then say, fuck it. I tried. I'm out. There's no right answer. The only right answer is the one that works for you. And I would say that if you want to say there's like a right answer, the only right answer is you get your shit together. Once you're a guy who has his shit together, he's not taken for granted, he's got a good mix of alpha capabilities and beta, depending on what he wants, just to spin plates or have a relationship, then all the rest of this stuff is something that he has to discover for himself. And I think the worst thing we could do to poor bastards like that is tell them hard and fast rules. Well, if you're not following these 10 tips, then fuck, you're wasting your time, right? Yeah, and that's kind of the frustrating thing. I know, Maurice, like, you're not a bad guy, but I'm using you as the example here. Like, your next comment is societal pressures tend to beat common sense into women, and that's completely vanished. Dude, there's no societal pressure anywhere in this one. There is no feminist friend of hers, no divorce friend of hers, none of that fucking fear-mongering shit that MGTOW 42069 has talked about. It's literally, she has anxiety, She needs him to walk on eggshells to placate her anxiety, which makes her anxiety worse. There is no outside influence on this at all. And that's just it. And this is why it's hard for guys to accept this. It's like, dude, the reason she is the way she is because you've enabled it. Now, she may be irredeemable. That to beat that may be too much effort for you. And that's fine. But there's nothing else to blame in this situation but yourself. And then Philbert, hey, how's it going? Jeremy, keep up the good work. Hey, like I said, fix your own lives and I'm perfectly fine. Necrocop, I can take on 5 red pill guys at once in a battle, right? Okay. In case you were wondering, we were talking about doing your stuff in German. Oh, fair enough. Yeah, das gut. Stoicism is good for, yeah, like I said, none of this is about stoicism. This hits too close to home, and it thinks with my 5-year with the anxious girl in January. We have a 14-month-old. Hardest thing to do, but I'm glad I got out. Yeah. And that's 3M2Z7. See, here's the thing. There's no bad decisions. I guarantee the baby mama probably thinks you're a shithead too. But, you know, that's not your problem. I know the guy said the same thing. It's not his problem, but it's not. Like, I have one life to live. And if you don't want to make the choice to try and fix that, can't fault you for it. You're still going to be a dad. The kid's 14. Can't get around that. Or 14 months old, but you know what? A good dad 50% of the time beats a shitty dad 100% of the time. It's his decision. You made it. You owned it. And I've seen examples go both ways. Guys were like, all right, I'm out. I can't handle this. You're too much. And other guys actually like, you know, literally Captain Save-A-Ho this shit. And both of them can work. It's just a matter of what do you want out of life. And I think that's the hard part. Once you say it's what I want, there's nobody else to blame for a success or failure but you. And a lot of guys hate that. Women churn at the delivery of truths. Just fucking say it. No survivors. Yeah, don't be afraid of being the bad guy, right? Philbert, do you check out your Discord from time to time? Yeah, time to time. Not as much as others do probably, because most of the time I'm busy like recording or editing or researching. But when I'm not working, I go in there. I can't have it on though when I'm at work because it'll just be pinging too much with stupid giraffe memes and shit. So. And then anxiety, paroxyline, or exposure therapy. Yeah. I don't like the idea of drugging anxiety because you're not going to get a girl, though. You're going to get a zombie. I'm very anti-SSRI in here, which is great because guys get prescribed Ritalin or Ativan or Zopiclone, or I guess that's Zopiclone's a sleeping pill, but that's the point. They just stop feeling because it mutes all emotions and they turn into a zombie and it's a horrible thing. Plus your sex drive goes out the window, you'll gain weight. Like there's no good side on it other than you're able to stop feeling anxious with just the taking of a pill as opposed to doing any amount of work. So, and then James, wait, who else in the red pill community has Discord? Well, it turns out I have a private community somehow, me and Jack. It's run by Dante, who's a moderator here. He puts links up from time to time. I don't have it with me. He'd be able to hook you up if you're curious about it. Just stick on one of the streams. As soon as you see one of the moderators in the chat, they'll send you a link to it to get you in. It's nice, though. It's a decent set of rules. We're trying to get back to this kind of stuff where we're actually fixing relationships and stuff. Necrocop, good dad equals leader. Bad dad equals avoidant man with alpha traits. Doesn't treat the core issue, but the symptom, which is girl not acting right. Yeah, about there. Okay, so super chat from Mustang. Talking of anxiety, I've heard you talk about having panic attacks in your past. How did you get past them? Well, I stopped taking SSRIs. And every time I felt one coming on, I would do a crazy hard workout from the gym. And then what happened there is I fried my central nervous system. So by the time I had a panic attack, my body was too tired to react. That was the first part. That's dealing with the symptom. Turns out the problem was environmental. It had to do with my military account. There's a Batman origin story in there. I'm not even going to bother with it. But once I just get that environmental factor out of my life, the tax went away. And it turns out the big deal was just deal with whatever in your environment is causing you anxiety and don't do anything stupid as a strategy until then. And that's where the workout came in. And I know it sounds very simple, but it's not simple. It was hard. Can you open your Patreon subscription to be paid in rupees too? Doesn't it? I don't know how Patreon works. I just have it there and they do whichever system. I would assume though, Samurai, you'd have to have a PayPal account and then just pay the Patreon through PayPal, but I don't have the ability to change PayPal's payment schemes, so that's just a guess. Okay, we're going to end this off in just a minute or two here. So TJ did the carnivore diet for a year, had very little to no anxiety, good times. Yeah, as long as it works. But again, it's a lot of times it's like, what's the anxiety coming from? And that's the thing about anxiety and panic attacks and that, there's always a trigger event, even if you don't know what it is. Dealing with that trigger event is ultimately the way to get rid of it. Because it's not like you train your body not to have panic. It's like training you to be a stoic. It doesn't work. Your body's going to panic in like triggers. If the trigger is environmental, change the environment. If the trigger is because a person is triggering it, get rid of the person. And all these problems go away. Yeah, weed. Again, I don't like the idea of medicating it because it's covering the symptom. As a temporary measure, I can see that. Some guys have panic attacks so bad they can't even function. So if they need to take an SSRI just to mute it enough that they can go to a workout and like get things started, power to you. But again, I would say that is such a rare phenomenon that almost nobody should follow the advice. It's like talking about fat people, how they have a thyroid issue. I'm like, there is people that have thyroid issues, but I guarantee you anybody bitching about the thyroid issue doesn't have it. Maybe add some points in the end of every episode to summarize what was the problem and the solution, like your practical psych episodes. Yeah, I might. These ones are kind of just more like free flow radio broadcasts, so I probably won't do them here. But the sidebar series stuff, I definitely do more in like a structured learning environment. I kind of like these ones here where there's a lesson and you kind of have to find it for yourself, because then for the guys who want to find it, they'll find it and they'll feel a lot more like they'll feel a lot better about finding it, because it was hard. You had to search for it. You had to use your noggin. You had to maybe watch it twice or read it twice. The other ones are like, here's the book, here's some supplementary material. I don't know. Like I said, it may not be the best approach. It's the one I'm taking here. Manageable amounts of anxiety after eating extra sugar, but right, that was for the Mustang guy. Oh yeah, sometimes diet can do it too, right? You don't know what the trigger is. As long as you know what the trigger is, though, you can deal with it. Coffee makes you anxious no matter what the coffee is. Yeah, and that's funny too, because some people have very sensitive caffeine receptors. Mine are burnt the fuck out. I'll drink coffee before bed. Some people have one coffee and they're jittering throughout the day. The one thing I will say, though, that works for that, my girl's got this one too. Get a blender like a Magic Bullet or something and add a tablespoon of butter with your coffee and emulsify it. It's called bulletproof coffee. And what it does is, because the caffeine molecules get surrounded by fat globules, it actually slows down the caffeine into your system, and it'll last throughout the day as opposed to that high and then the crash. You might notice if you want to do coffee, try that technique. Staying plan is the same as the go plan. Working on myself so whatever choice I make will be the best version of what I want to do. Yeah, Miguel, you're getting it. Exactly. Oh yeah, dude, don't try SSRIs. Chances are, by the way, if like when you tried them, they didn't work, it's just because your dosage was wrong too. But again, I would not ever recommend somebody take those unless they're at the point where they literally start throwing up from anxiety. And I've never seen a case that bad. And in the military, it's some weird thing too. I started talking with my old coworkers after we got back from deployment. We all got spread over the country, different posts, 27 different bases, had friends in all of them. We'd kind of talked to each other over the year. 25 of them were given SSRIs, and not one of us were ever given one while we were deployed or on an operational unit. And I just thought it was really funny. We could be literally here having Iran lock missile batteries onto our position and try to kill us. Nothing. But you're at home doing an office job, sending emails, and people are panicking. It's like, these aren't weak people. And I get it. There's a thing to it. And the SSRIs didn't help. Everybody just gained weight. So it was like ridiculous. Yeah, popping pills is overrated. I hate to say it too, because I'm very anti-psychopharmacy and psychology this way. I don't want to come across as a fucking Scientologist either, because that's not it. It's just if it doesn't work, I'm not going to enjoy it. I don't care how prestigious the authority is. Like, if it doesn't work, it's useless to me. And so many people I've talked to share that grief. And so many of the strategies we've hit have kind of been ignoring those authoritative things. Because if they did work, the problem would be gone right now. The problem's not gone, it's actually getting worse. Like, anxiety is trending up. Panic is trending up. All is trending up. So don't tell me psychology works great, because so far the results are not promising. Fasting, you like that for mental focus. A lot of ways to low anxiety levels, having heavy weightlifting, therapy, writing. Well, yeah, and the writing is something different though. That's kind of a long-term thing. That's why I deal with these field reports. Because in your mind, you can hand wave a lot of this shit away. In his mind, he made this story out to be where he's the good guy, she's the bad guy, and that's as far into it as he looked, and his brain gave him the dopamine of like, yeah, you got it, bro. But when you write it down, you have to have the presence of mind to know that another person needs to understand the situation. And you have limited time to write, and it's limited effort, so you can only write the things that you think are important. And it forces you to fill in the gaps that your mind would otherwise fill in for you. And that's why these things are useful. Probably 30-40% of the field reports, by the time the guy's finished it, he already has his answer. And then it's just the rest of the guys going over it to, see if there's things he missed. And there's some like this, though, where he just doesn't see it, and then somebody actually has to like point it out to you. But it becomes very obvious when you read a guy's field report. There's things that are usually in them that people forget to put in because they want to hide from it, or they didn't bother doing it. There's things that they added that aren't necessary. Well, why did they add that when it wasn't necessary? It's illuminating. And once you've seen a couple hundred of these things, you're just going to be amazing. That's why everybody wonders, like, how does guys like Rollo, is he looking inside my head? It's like, no, man, just do this 100,000 times and you're going to start to notice it's almost identical with every guy. There's maybe 6 archetypes of guy out there. And damn, I came on right as you finished the caffeine comment. What makes the energy last over time? It's just, it's the fat. Fats takes longer to digest. And so as you digest the fat, it slowly releases the caffeine is all. I've gone from 23 stone. How many pounds is a stone, by the way? Permanent virgin, 32. Bit of a player. Thing is, I don't care much. Get up and go. Libido never recovered fully. Knows this attitude actually helps attract women. Yeah, it does. The alpha side of things works great because they don't see it as you kind of like it's essentially a mental coping strategy, like a sour grapes thing. I don't care because I'm so used to not having something that I don't want to get myself into a panic attack because I'm not getting what I want. It's not as helpful for you now, so it eventually should calm down and go away. But yeah, if you ever decide to this girl's worth a relationship and she's put in some effort, you want to keep her, that tool is going to work against you. And I would really suggest that's what this field report shows you is you have to temper it. Add enough comfort to the point where you're not just having the girl spiral out of control. And if you don't want a relationship, then who cares, right? My biggest issue is that I try to blame myself first and then think rationally about the situation afterwards. Not a bad thing either, man. You're allowed to fuck up. And then after you fuck up, you're allowed to think it through and see where you could do better. That's the whole purpose of field reports. I fucked up. What did I do wrong? All right, I'll do it better this time. And then eventually you run through that cycle enough that it becomes intuitive. But, until you're there, you're not there. Taking an objective view is hard sometimes. It absolutely is. And that's why, and this is going to be my Patreon plug, that's why it's almost vital you have a good group of guys to ping this shit off of. Because guys have no desire to bullshit you. The brands do, guys don't. A good friend is great for that. Hey man, you're bullshitting yourself. Because they like you enough not to lie to you, as opposed to women who, if they like you enough, they'll lie to you to keep the peace. That's why female friends don't work. Anyways, we're going to end here on D Digital's comment and David just below it. So enter more stressful situations, hire a guy to throw hand grenades at you like Animal Mother. Yikes. And then I got to go start writing field reports. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so for field reports, there's plenty of ways to do it, and none of them are any worse than the other. The old guys, the old school guys, the OMGs, old married guys, they would start a blog. Dalrog started a blog, and that's how he did his field reports, and the SoSWA forums. That's what those guys did their field reports. The Married Red Pill guys put them on the Married Red Pill or Ask the Married Red Pill. Some people join a private community because they want discretion. In this case, that's the Patreon one for us. Some guys just write it on their own. Write it on the notepad. Delete it after they finished writing it and they read it over. I would suggest save them because you do want to go back and look at them, especially after a year or two, just in case you're wondering how much progress you've made between then and now. It'd be interesting to see. But yeah, it'll be good. It'll clarify. And another one, I think Peterson used to talk about this before he got all famous, was his, what the hell they call that one? The authorship program or something? It's actually something good. I kind of feel bad that he got all famous from the trans C10 issue, because before then, his authorship program was pretty good. It just sucks that nobody paid attention to him until he kind of got caught into that whole conservative grift. Anyways, enjoy, guys. I'm going to go have some lunch. I'm a little bit late, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, boys.